Welcome back to a special Last of Us Ty and That Guy. We're doing episode 5 today. Survive and endure. Survive and endure. Doer. Hey, Ty. We got a couple of housekeeping things coming up. Ty, do you wanna tidy up the house for us?
Yeah, Joseph gets mad at us because we don't ever do this right, and so he gave us a script. And as a member of the WGA, I'm going to be like formally protesting that a non-union writer wrote a script for me. But Joseph wants to make sure that everybody, if you would like to, you take the time to like, subscribe, write a comment, leave a review, whatever the things are. It really helps him out. It makes Joseph happy, so he doesn't have to feed shoes to his children. And also, he wants us to Patreon supporters up front, which we actually do really appreciate them.
Yeah, we do appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and the we use the Patreon stuff to make the show better, to get stuff that we need for the show. And Wes is not buying a 7th Lamborghini for himself off of that money.
I can just picture it when you say that. I can just picture the patrons be like, "This is the show better." What was the show like before?
Oh yeah,
this? Jesus Christ! Where's my hard-earned dollars going to?
It could actually be worse than this. Yeah, and if you are a patron, you get longer episodes, you get uncut episodes, you get all the mistakes that Wes makes, which is really fun because he makes a lot of them. And if you want to watch Wes screw things up over and over again, you definitely want to get those long episodes. And one other thing is we just had an Ask Me Anything, a live one with our patrons. It was a lot of fun, and we're definitely planning to make that a regular part of the show. So if you want to come hang out with us live and get to ask us questions, about Wes's 6 Lamborghinis and how we bought those, you should definitely become a patron.
I would never own a Lamborghini.
Yeah, that's why you own 6. One was not enough. I mean, you own one for every day of the week except for the Sabbath, because the Sabbath is the Lord's Day, and you can't drive a Lamborghini on the Lord's Day.
Yeah, yep. You drive a Chevrolet on the Lord's Day.
You drive a Chevy on the Lord's Day. The way God intended.
Yeah, the way God intended. Survive and endure. That's what we're talking about today, Ty.
Yeah. And one thing I had forgotten from the game, the episode reminded me, just as a general note, because I was mistaken about this last time, is that Sam and Henry aren't father and son; they're brothers. That's true in the game too, and I had just forgotten that. I guess because there's a large age difference, my brain just inserted father son. But yeah, they're obviously Sam is a much younger brother than Henry, but they have I think they have kind of a father son style relationship though, in spite of the fact that they're brothers. Yeah,
I heard something with Craig Mazin was talking about the reason that they made Sam deaf was because they just went. We have just spent the Joel Ellie dynamic, where they're father and daughter kind of relationship, and then this is kind of a similar relationship. So he doesn't kind of want to repeat that same tone. So he thought that if he changed that, it would make it more intimate and make it quieter, and that was one of the reasons going into why he made that happen.
I liked it. I liked the extra wrinkle that introduced into the way they told the story. I liked the way Ellie engages with Sam and tries to communicate, even though she doesn't know sign language, still trying to communicate, trying to learn signs. It makes her so likable because she immediately adapts to this new element and tries to engage. Like, she and Sam are quickly becoming friends. I do want to bring up before we get into the episode itself. So I was talking to my nephew. We both happened to be on PlayStation at the same time, so we were just chatting there. And Janae asked him if he was enjoying Last of Us, and he's a gamer, so he was like, "Well, I don't know. I mean, it's okay, but they're leaving out a lot of things from the game." And I wanted to address that because this episode specifically leaves out a big chunk from the game and does a different path. And the conversation I had with him is, even as a gamer, why would you want to just watch a dramatization of what it would look like to watch somebody playing the game? Because he was like, well, in the game, when you get to this point, you have to fight all these guys and you have to find these resources and you have to put this thing together. And I'm like, yeah, but wouldn't that be boring to watch? Wouldn't it just feel like you're watching someone play the game? And if you want to watch people play the game, Twitch exists. You can go on a Twitch stream and watch people play the game. A TV show should be doing different things. It should be finding ways to tell the same story, but in different and surprising ways. I just found that a very interesting take. I mean, he's a younger guy, and maybe it's a more sort of young take on the thing. But I'm more curious for the audience. Like, if we're talking about leaving comments, leave a comment. I mean, does that bother you that they cut out things that are long gameplay sections and turn them in? Like either cut them entirely or just turn them into shorter story sections in the show. As a gamer, it doesn't bother me at all. But maybe my take on that is unusual.
Well, it's interesting because sometimes there's a common critique on biopics where they'll watch the biopic and they're like, yeah, that didn't really happen. Or that's not really like what the thing is, what the truth is. And the reality is cold empirical truth of an actual person's life of what actually happened is impossible. It's impossible. Even if you're doing a documentary, that documentary is going to be colored through something. And what you're really doing when you're telling a fictional story about a person is you're really telling a story that entertains and inspires people in the way that person entertained and inspired that people. It's like capturing the spirit, and the spirit of it can be truthful and not truthful, but the actual events and the way people respond to things within it is never going to be truthful, because that isn't, in trying to capture that isn't that interesting. And so if you're playing the game and you fell in love with this game, it's really taking the spirit out and putting it into a TV show that is just as compelling and enthralling as the game was when you first did it for the first time.
Yeah, and delivers the spirit of the game. Right. From my perspective, as somebody who played the game and is watching the show. But yeah, so I thought the death choice was interesting. I like, as you said, I thought that was a good comment that it creates this additional intimacy between Sam and Henry, because Henry is literally the only person in the world Sam can talk to. And so it really creates a tighter bond. And I liked what it did with Ellie. I liked her reaction to Sam and how she dealt with him. The reason I brought up that thing about my nephew is that there is a chunk of the game with these four characters that is much longer than what happens in the show. And this was the first time they cut something where I was like, I wish we had a little more time with these characters. If their interactions had spanned 3 episodes rather than just 2 episodes, I would not have been unhappy about that. Mm-hmm. By the way, spoilers, as always. Joseph, make sure to put a spoiler warning at the beginning, because we always just spoil the shit out of stuff. But yeah, I this was the first time I was like, I wish they'd done a little more of what the game did, just so we could keep these characters together for a little longer.
So I agree to a point of what you're saying, but there's something about bringing characters on, and they're so layered, they're so complex, they're so interesting that you end up connecting and falling in love with them, and then they die, and it's too short. So like, even if they said, let's extend this for a couple of episodes, whatever, and you get to be with them a little bit longer, or like Walking Dead, if there was a favorite character, nobody died. It's just like there would just be new guys, whatever. The fact that these guys are coming on, you're like, oh, these people can be series regular, and I'd be happy with it. And it's over too soon. It's too soon, and it really emotionally gives you the feeling of what it's like being in that world. And Craig Mazin does this speech. He did it for South by Southwest about how to write a movie, and he uses Finding Nemo as an example. And he talks about plot comes from the character. So the father in Finding Nemo, they really explain why he's so overprotective of Nemo. So, okay, so let's have his whole family wiped out completely and everybody gone, right? There's only one son, one egg that's left, right? That's his last name. You think that'd be far enough? No, let's make that one son disabled. He has one fin that can't, that is not, it doesn't have the same ability as the other fin, right? So he has a really troublesome. So now it's just like, just really magnifying over and over, coming through character. So the fact that Sam is in this incredibly dangerous world, the fact that Henry, his brother, cares so deeply about him, and now he's sick. He was sick in this world where, getting medical attention or medical supplies is like almost impossible. And then on top of that, he's deaf, right? And so the vulnerability in this adorable kid is so much, and it just makes you really care for that kid's, that much more intense. And so the plot of Henry is coming through this relationship of why he betrayed a guy that he really cared about. All like the moral questions that this episode brings up, which is consistent with this whole series and what this series is. But again, it's like with Kathleen having that conversation about her brother and how her brother was Christ-like in a way. Like he was forgiving. He was this great leader. He told her to not even go after Henry or not do the thing with Henry.
Forgive him.
And she's like, I'm not that. I've never been that. And I can't let that go. And her guy was like, listen, he didn't accomplish anything. Your way is what got us here. Right. And so it's the question, because then her dead set on this vengeance, the thing that got him there, the thing that took over Fedra, the thing that raised them up and got them freedom, in the end, it still killed them because she ignored the big problem underneath the streets.
Yeah. And just to go back to the Sam and Henry thing, the game part of it, and I don't want to talk too much about the game because that's not the point of this, but the thing that the Sam and Henry section in the game did that I missed is it broke the four of them up and it paired them off differently. Joel winds up having to shepherd Sam through this very dangerous underground area as they're trying to escape the city, and Henry and Ellie wind up together. And that I think that was interesting storytelling wise, to have the four of them split up in that way and being forced to cooperate with this person that you don't know that well, you maybe don't trust as well. If they could have found a way to, and the fact that there was all that stuff pushing up from underground made me think we were going to get that, because I thought they'd wind up doing more stuff underground. I'm okay with the way the story went. Like when you and I were watching last episode before this, and the ground was pushing up, and you were like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know, but that's the thing I would be thinking about. You're absolutely right. She should have been thinking about that. She's sitting there going, well, I got to catch Henry. Really? Yeah. Vengeance for your brother is more important than whatever the fuck that is. That's like saying, like, this guy's coming after you with a shotgun. Yeah, but this other guy stole $10 from you. I got to go get that $10. No, fuck the $10. The guy with the shotgun is the problem. Yeah. And, they're staring down the barrel of whatever that shit is underground, and it's clearly it's cocked and ready to fire. And she's going, no, I'm going to go deal with this other trivial shit over here first.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like squabbling over the Iron Throne, but a White Walker army's coming after you. You're like, you know what? Forget about the Iron Throne for a second. We got to deal with these White Walkers right now in the endless winter that's coming.
Yeah.
That's another question that comes up, is when they're hiding out and Sam is really scared. And it's kind of the thing of like, in that situation, would you tell it's not his son, but it's the same kind of dynamic. Would you tell your son the truth? Or would you lie to him to give him a better chance at survival? So to give an example is like, if you've had young kids or something, that sometime if they know something, they would emotionally shut down. And so you can tell them something in a way that gives them confidence, that builds them up, because once they're going to be fine. It's like with Nash and wrestling tournaments, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to do great in this guy and da-da-da. But I don't know this guy, and he could probably lose. The guy's probably good or whatever. But I'm like, I'm not lying to him. I'm just saying, I guess I am lying to him, because I'm acting as if I know that kid. Like I was like, you're going to do great. I know this kid, you're going to be fine. And he goes out there and he does well, but I guess that could backfire. So, the question is like, would you lie? Like if there was something that, like if your house was surrounded by zombies, I mean, I don't know how to think of the situation, but if there was a situation where with Janae and you could tell her something that wasn't true to keep her calm enough to do what she had to do, would you do it? Or would you just always tell the truth?
When I'm in survival mode, I'm just in survival mode. I'm going to do whatever. Like, I don't care what it takes. I'm just going to do that. And I'm either fortunate or unfortunate enough to have been in live or die situations a couple times in my life. like all other considerations, and this is, I think this is an instinctive thing. I think this is a thing you're either born with or you're not, because I've been around other people in those situations and they have very wildly different reactions from me. But my brain seems to be wired so that when I'm in a situation where that trigger gets flipped of like, oh, this is a survival situation. If we can't make this work, some or all of us are going to die. Like all other considerations just kind of go away. Like I just stop thinking about everything else until the thing is over with. Whatever I'd have to do to get out of there with the people I care about still intact, I'm just going to do that. And if that involves lying, I'll apologize later. I'll be like, hey, sorry, I lied to you about that thing, but you're alive.
Well, but I guess what I'm saying is what's more effective, you know? But I think that I would behave differently in survival mode if it's just me and I'm alone. I'm reading Band of Brothers right now, and a lot of the same moral questions are coming up within the book. And these are guys that are doing things that they never would have dreamed that they would have done. But when they're in this survival place and it's them or the other guys and there's something rising up within them and they talk about it after the fact and they're like, I don't know what was got into me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't do that today, or I could, but you know, there's something that gets triggered in them. It's like, go back to Mad Max and he's like, he's like, my whole existence is boiled down to one instinct. Yeah. And that's to survive.
Yeah, and you watch stuff like this, and you can't help but put yourself in this situation. People have wildly different reactions to stuff like this. For some people, they need to maintain their self-image no matter what the circumstances are. Like if you think I'm a good person, I don't lie to people, I don't hurt people. For some people, maintaining that self-image is more important than considerations like survival. And I'm not judging those people. And for some people, like you can have a self-image, you can have things you believe about yourself, and the minute it becomes a survival situation, you can just abandon that and turn into whatever you need to be to survive. And I think the world needs both kinds of people. I'm glad both kinds of people exist. But Joel is clearly the kind who just was like, oh, nothing else about me matters. I'm just going to survive, and I'm going to keep Tess alive, and I'm going to keep Tommy alive, and that's it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the doctor was clearly a character that he needed to be. He needed to not abandon that part of himself.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was clever how they blend the timelines to tell the story, and they kind of overlapped and overlayered each other. Because this episode starts off with the uprising against Fedra. Henry and Sam, they go up into the safe room, the attic that the doctor finds for him. And then he sees Joel and Ellie's shootout. And so then when he sees that, he knows, okay, here's a guy that knows how to shoot and will shoot somebody. And this is what I'm going to need because I am not a violent person.
Yeah.
This is not the thing that I'm going to do. And so when he comes, so that's kind of how their worlds collide. They need each other. He can find his way out and Joel will shoot people.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the line that he says when he says, pointing an empty gun at you is the most violent thing I've ever done. I thought that was a great line. And I'm glad that there are people whose first instinct is not violence. I'm glad that those people exist. I wish the world had more of those people in it. But there are situations like this where you're like, you know what I'm going to need? I'm going to need a murderous motherfucker on my team. Like, I get it. When he's like, I'm not going to be able to shoot my way out of town. I think you could. So we're just going to like follow you as you clear a path for us. Yeah, made complete sense to me.
And what were they saying within the episode? So they go underground. First of all, where were all the infected when they went under the ground the first time?
Yeah, I don't know. So in the game, there is a lengthy section of this part of the game where you wind up with Sam and Henry. Something happens that winds up trapping Henry and Ellie on the other side of a gate that you can't open. And you're trapped. You're playing Joel. You're trapped with Sam on the other side. And you wind up going through this underground area sort of almost in parallel to get to an exit where you can rejoin each other. And that's the piece that they cut out. So when they went underground, I thought that's where they were going, but they just kind of go through. In that section in the game, there are definitely infected down there, and you have to deal with that. You have to fight them. I got the sense in the show version that all the infected had sort of grouped up somewhere, because when that thing bursts open, just like all of them, like every infected just comes bursting out of that hole.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like that's not a behavior I've seen in the game before. So I'm not sure what they're showing there, or if it's a behavior we're going to see again.
And Henry was able to get him out of town, and they were in a neighborhood, and he was like, see, I fucking told you I was right. That's time. And I'm with Joel, like, shut the fuck up. Like that, I was driving me crazy when you're walking down there and you're like, dude, have you been alive in this world? Like, I mean, there's so many things that can kill you. There's humans. There's 3 different types of zombie that I could tell. There's the clickers and the new zombies and the bloated zombies and all of these things. So shut the fuck up. Like, let's get out of here before we were doing that. And then that sniper comes out of the house. Was that in the game?
Yeah. It's interesting because they cut one section that is in the game. You know, the 2 teams going through the sewers section is cut. But they kept another one that is maybe the most video gamey section in the game, which is you go into this building to take out this sniper. You wind up taking him out and you get his gun. And while you're up there looking out the window, this is in the game. While you're looking out the window, a bunch of guys show up and attack. And you have to use the sniper rifle, to protect your guys who are out there. And it is a very, very video gamey section where it's like you can't move from that spot. All you can do is shoot. Yeah. You're just shooting the guys who are trying to get your team. And they kept that where it's basically Joel is up there playing the video game.
Yeah. I think they do things like that when it serves the show, but also serves people like your nephew, that can go back and say, oh, there you go. I recognize that from the game. Was the sniper an old guy that wasn't great at shooting in the game?
I don't remember. I don't remember, because he's over with very quickly. You get in the building, you go up there, you just kill him, and you take his gun. The scene that's not in there in the game is where Joel's saying, "Don't do it. Don't make me do this." Like he's trying to let the guy, leave alive, and the guy just insists on trying to take the shot.
You know what sucks more than going through the apocalypse? Is being fucking old and going through the apocalypse. And whenever I see old people, I'm like, man, that must have sucked. Like if you're young and you could stay out all night, and fight and, be fine or whatever, but being an old fucking man, like that's got to be hard. And obviously he was on the rebel side. He's on the insurgency side.
Yep.
So that means he was like underground for all that time. And so when they show up, he can't see well. And when he was like, don't do it, I think that guy was like, do you think I give a shit? Like, I'm fucking old, and it's the end of time. Like, fuck you. I'm going to go for you, buddy.
This is why when the zombie apocalypse happens, you and I are fucked, Wes. Because we're too fucking old.
Unless it happens now, I'm good now.
No,
I'm ready to roll.
You're pretty old.
I always say, like, when they're shooting UFOs and shit out of the sky, I'm like, now's the time. Now's that I'm at the time where I'm ready to fucking, like, I feel like my wisdom and everything, so I'm ready for it to happen now. If they wait 10 years, then I'm not going to participate. I'll just be out on the farm. Yeah, so he he wasn't that great of a shot, which I thought was a good detail. And
the thing that happens in the game is you come out and somebody starts shooting at you, and you have to sneak over to the building that they're in and get them, right? But obviously they don't hit you. What I liked about what the show did is gave us a reason why you didn't get hit.
Yes.
Right? Which is in the game, they're just doing that so you don't just instantly die and it's not fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I thought was so smart about the show is they were walking down the middle of the street under a street light. The house was directly behind them. The guy was in the window directly behind them. And he starts shooting and he's just going all over the place and missing. And Joel acknowledges this guy can't shoot for shit. And then it's like, because how many movies, how many Rambos have you seen? And they're just like point blank firing and they're not hitting anything. And they don't explain why. And then when he comes up and he sees he's an old man that the guy can barely see. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. And then there's a little bit of Joel having empathy. Like, don't fucking do it. I don't want to shoot you, old man. And the guy goes for it anyway, which is a great character moment coming through.
My only question is, the rebels who kicked Fedra out, they seem fairly well organized. They've got vehicles, they've got teams of guys, they've got a leader, all that. Why did they pick the blindest old man to be their sniper? That's what I want to know.
I thought about this. The only thing that I can think is, Kansas City is a big city.
Yeah.
And they had the perimeter set. They didn't think they were going to get out of the perimeter. So I think all their best guys were in there. And then they just put basically like guys, because they never thought that they could probably get out. They didn't expect them to go underground. So they probably put guys with a walkie-talkie just spread out all over the place like they're kind of C-team members. And like, just go out there, and if you see them, take a shot, but just let us know. Call us on the radio. And and all their good guys has to be there, doing the good guy shit. So all their A teams are inside the wall.
If I'm handing somebody the sniper rifle, I'm going to ask them if they can see.
That guy would have been better off just calling it in.
Yeah,
like,
don't even take a shot.
Yeah, just be quiet and just call it in.
Now, the other side of that, the other argument for that, and I think this one actually does make sense, is you call it in, but it's going to take time for your guys to get there. So you fire some shots to keep them pinned down, right? Yeah. Which he did. He actually effectively did that. He kept them pinned down while his team was showing up. If it wasn't for Joel sneaking up on him.
Then, Kathleen shows up and all her guys, and they're about to kill Henry. And that was cool, by the way, when the fucking big semis going down and just smashing all the cars. That was a little bit of Road Warrior coming through. I thought that was cool when they showed up. But my one gripe, one picky nick with this whole thing is, so there was an explosion, and then the car falls through the earth, and then that's where all the infected were gathered. It always takes me out when something passive happens at the right time, or something accidentally happens at the right time, because it was at the right moment where Henry was the gun was pointed at Henry. He's going to go out. All of a sudden, something happened that was beyond anybody's control. Now, they properly set it up. You saw the stuff, before coming. But it would have made more sense to me if they saw, like, when they were underground, they saw, like, the infected group at somewhere, or they saw some effect. They knew that was down there. And there was something they could have done at the right moment of, like, when she has the gun at him and he's like, fuck it, we're all going to go. And then they blew it up. And then the things come. But they weren't in control of it. It wasn't their action. It was, like, a thing of chance that happened, and that always kind of takes me out of a little bit.
I agree with you. As a storyteller, you tend to not want, they call it, the Deus Ex Machina, right? Like you don't want random things to save your characters. You want your characters to save themselves. And in general, that is true. And when you're writing stories, for the seven of you who care how the sausage is made, when you're writing stories, scripts or books or whatever, you're looking for moments like that to take out, like let's let our protagonist protag. Let's give the action to the characters. On the other hand, one of the overriding themes of The Last of Us is that humans are not in control, that we are in a world that is stranger and more dangerous and less in our control than it ever has been. I agree. It would have been nice if they had done something that helped themselves there and wasn't just completely random. But I will say that moment is not out of tone with the rest of the show. So don't think about it from Joel's perspective. Think about it from Kathleen and Perry's perspective. So yeah, from Joel's perspective, from Henry's perspective, a bunch of zombies come bursting out of the ground and save Henry, right? That feels a little Deus Ex. But if you think about it from Kathleen and Perry's perspective, they were under this like fascist rulership in Kansas City that tortured and murdered them to keep them in control. They stage a revolution. They drive Fedra out. They kill them. They take over. They assume control over their own town and their own lives. They have succeeded. They have won. Kathleen, yeah, she's a little obsessed with catching Henry because she feels like he caused her brother to die. So she's a little obsessed about that. But outside of that, they've got their shit together in this post-apocalyptic world. And the thing that kills them all is this random thing that they should have been paying attention to, and they didn't. They thought they could control it. They thought they could deal with it later, and it comes back and it destroys them. So from their perspective, what happens is absolutely in keeping with the tone of the show. that the little minor thing that you don't pay attention to, that you think you control, will fuck you up. That is that world in a nutshell.
We can go back and debate, because everything that some of the chemistry and the magic of this show for me is that the people that have survived for a significant amount of time, which basically everybody in this world are, is because they're making good choices. They're making smart choices. So even though the odds are overwhelmingly against them, so like Joel and Ellie, like when they was it the second episode when they were in the what was her name that she ended up they did the mushroom kiss and the thing. Tess, and they were in that big ballroom, right? And so and then with the clickers, like they are one step ahead of death. And the odds are against them, but they're making the right choices and they're doing the right things. And then some of them are dying, but they're dying in a way that is like Tess died by taking out and saving them. And so there's something that I find compelling about that. It's really interesting to me. And this was the one moment where I kind of got taken out and was like, well, this is random. They could have been down there and seen something or discovered something. And then it was properly set up. I get your point. You know, you saw that this thing was coming, and if you look at morally and kind of like what the show was telling, where he's like, hey boss, we got to deal with this thing. But she's so goddamn focused on Henry when she's questioning the people that she has detained. Her thing is Henry, and she's like, kill them all. You know, it's kind of this thing of vengeance has taken her over. It's made her effective, but ultimately it's going to be her downfall.
Yeah.
And when Henry comes up, she has that interesting question. She's like, why should Sam count more than these other children? Like, why do you, like, you think you can trade my brother's life for Sam's life to get medicine? Why do you think Sam is so special? Kids die every day.
Yeah.
Which is true, but there is a thing of love, you know, your tribe, your thing, your kid, your brother. And that is the moral debate that's going on through this. Like, how does somebody have more value than the other when you're breaking it all down on a base level?
Well, and that is a really interesting question because Kathleen is right. You know, kids die every day.
Yeah.
You don't get to decide that yours is more important than everybody else's, but we all do. Everybody does. It's a fact of human nature. I mean, I remember watching a movie with Janae, this was years ago, but it was not a very good movie. One of the characters is like, I'd die for you. And Janae turns to me and jokingly says, would you die for me? And I was like, no, but I'd kill everybody else. So it's like, you know, like I wouldn't trade other people's lives for the person that I love, but I absolutely would. Right. I mean, like if it came down to it, like, you know, that whole trolley problem of like, you know, like, would you change the track, you know, and that whole ethic. I'm like, which track is Janae on? Because the people on the other track are fucked.
And I think, you know, and again, one of the reasons I like this show, and you and I have hours long conversations on morality and the right thing and under what conditions and what pressure. But like, if I was alone in this world, I would act a lot different than if I was with my kids.
Of course you would.
If I was with my kids, I'm killing I would be unrecognizable.
Yeah. And
so, you know, in having Sam in this, again, it's like when I read Cormac McCarthy's The Road, it was so almost unreadable for me because he had his son and he was in this world that was so evil and the odds were so much against them.
And it was hopeless.
It was hopeless.
And the thing that the book does so they made that movie out of it, which I
didn't see the movie.
Yeah, it's not as good because one of the things that scares Hollywood, they felt like they needed to change was the hopelessness. Like, you don't want a hopeless story in a Hollywood movie. They don't like that. They want it to feel like there's hope. The thing reading the book is the hopelessness in the book is you're trudging along, you're trying to stay alive a little longer. But that's the best you can hope for is a little longer. We're never going to get to a point where suddenly everything is okay and there's cities again and people go back to having normal lives. That's never going to happen. And that's it. The question of when there is no hope, when you can never get back the life that you had, is there a dignity in pushing on anyway? Is there a emotional payoff for, you know, if if the difference is between surviving 5 minutes and surviving 10 minutes, do you fight for the extra 5 minutes, even knowing that your life is about to end in 10 minutes or less? And I find that a very interesting question. And The Road really tackled that question. I think that question is at the core of Joel's story, because the only things that Joel ever cared about are gone, right? But he fights hard to survive. What is he surviving?
His brother's still alive.
His brother's still alive, but he's gone. What is Joel fighting so hard to survive for at this point? And Joel is fighting to survive for the sake of surviving. It's, you brought up Mad Max, and I think that's a perfect example. Joel is boiled down to one instinct. In all apocalypse stories, the most interesting philosophical question to me, the base philosophical question in all these apocalypse stories, is that one, the one you brought up. Can just surviving be the goal in and of itself without any other goals?
Right.
Yeah.
I start to really connect to Ellie and Sam's relationship. And at the end, when they're sitting there and they went through all this stuff together and they have that conversation on his little pad. And when he says to her, he asks her the question that I've been asking myself since we started this series. Are you still there when you turn into a monster?
Yeah.
Like how much of you exists when you turn into a monster? And he asked that question. And that's what I've been wanting to know, because if an infected biting you and then everything goes black and you die and then the mushrooms take over your body, that to me is like, okay.
That's like getting shot in the head.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Like all of a sudden my fear. But if you're trapped somewhere in there, like Get Out, like you're in the sunken place and you're seeing all these horrific things happening. Yeah. That is horrifying to me. Yeah. That is terror.
Well, I get the sense that what you wind up with is both. What they seem to be implying, at least from my perspective, is that when you are first infected, you are still in there, at least for a while. I think when you're a clicker and your head is burst open and there's nothing in there but mushrooms,
you're done.
You're probably not in there anymore.
Yeah.
But when you are just infected and still mostly human in shape and your head hasn't burst open full of mushrooms, they seem to be implying that there is some piece of you still in there.
Yeah. And I come to that conclusion too when he asked that and he shows her that he's been bit. This breaks my heart on many levels, because it shows that he's completely, it's very childlike, right? Like the fact that he's so afraid, but he trusts Ellie and he shows Ellie that he's been bit. Now, this poor kid has seen these monsters.
Yeah.
And the thing that he's wondering is am I still going to be existing within this? So like what this poor kid is having to realize is happening to him, it just breaks my heart. And you can see it on Ellie's face when she sees that he's bit, and she's like, look, I've been bit too. And she's like, my blood is medicine, and she cuts her hand. Now, my question to you is there some part of Ellie that thinks that her blood could help him?
I wondered that when I was watching it. I think that I think it was a childish hope. And she acts so not childish most of the time. Mm-hmm. That it's kind of surprising.
It's reminding you that she is a child.
It's reminding you that she's a child. One of the things that all children do that most adults grow out of. This is something Daniel, my writing partner, and I have talked about a bunch of times, because we have friends, unfortunately, who never grow out of this, and it fucks up their lives. All children live in what's called an asserted universe. So children live in a universe where if I want something bad enough, that thing will happen. Or if I tell my friend that I am good at something, then when the test comes, I'll actually be good at it, right? Like, I know how to do that. And then you just believe, because you've said you know how to do it, when you have to do it, you'll figure it out. You'll be good at it, right? That gets beat out of you as an adult, because, you'll quickly learn that just because you say you're awesome at something doesn't mean you are, and you're going to get exposed. But all children live in an asserted universe like that. Like, if I want something bad enough, if I wish hard enough, if I pretend like something is true, maybe it will really be true. And that's what Ellie's doing there, right? She's saying, for some reason, I don't die of infection. And then she's telling Sam this wish, like, my blood is medicine. So if I cut myself and I rub the blood all over your bite, that'll fix you. And I think in that moment, she's desperately hoping that that is true.
She has to believe it to some extent because she sits down and watches him. It's not like as soon as he goes down, she gets out of the room. So it wasn't just for comfort. But the good thing is it probably gave the kid a little bit of comfort for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And when she wakes up in the morning and he's sitting on the bed, now this goes back to the beginning because Sam is a character that I like a lot. And I like Henry. And so there was a little bit of like, is this going to be a new regular? Is this going to be a new thing? Yeah. And so there was a big mystery of if he's changed or not, because he could be somebody that goes on or whatever. And then you remember that he can't hear when she touches, because then it's like he's not acting weird. He's not doing everything because he can't hear. He's like, he's in a dormant. And when she comes around and she touches him and he's changed, it is fucking heartbreaking because he asked the question, am I still alive when he's in there? So you picture that poor kid being still alive and conscious while he's attacking Ellie. And then Henry has to shoot him.
Yeah.
Henry compromised everything he was and betrayed somebody that was close to him for
that kid,
Sam.
Yeah.
For the kid.
Yep.
So now that he had to kill the kid that he's given everything up for, he's got nothing. He's got nothing to live for.
That is the question, right? Like if you betray every principle that you hold for someone like that, like what he did for Sam, and then they die anyway, now you don't have the thing you betrayed all your principles for, and you don't have your principles anymore. What's left, right? And that's also an interesting philosophical question. You know, I've known people who I don't want to get too grim here, but I've known people who lost kids, and I know that they all mention that the first thought is suicidal ideation. And, and most people work through that and you get well eventually, but it's such a powerful emotional thing. And your first thought is, I need to be gone too. It didn't surprise me in the game because that happens in the game too, when Henry shoots himself. That did not surprise me, because in that moment you're standing there. Everything you've ever cared about is gone now. Everything you used to be is gone now, and you have a gun in your hand. I think that felt like a very real moment to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, there
was no other option.
It's just a really easy thing to do. I mean, he's standing there, he's got a gun in his hand. Yeah. I could see it.
Well, and that brings us to the end. It was a powerful episode, man. I mean, that little Sam broke my heart, and Henry, goddamn, this show can get it to you.
They're casting really well too, because the kid playing Sam never has a single line of dialogue, and you love him. He's great.
Kevon Woodward, where'd they find him, man? He was fantastic. And shout out to Lamar Johnson. He was really good as Henry.
He was really good. They were both great.
I think Kevon is hearing disabled as well.
Oh, he actually is. He actually is hearing disabled.
Yeah.
But he, without a single line of dialogue to deliver that heartfelt and heartbreaking performance, that kid's got chops, man. He's got some chops.
But thank you guys for hanging out. I'm glad we did like and subscribe and all the housekeeping stuff up beginning, because we don't have to do it now. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.